about I turn the mic on? Can you hear me now? No. Can you hear me now?
1, 2, 3, 4. Here, take this one.
Bullet. Okay.
There you go.
Okay. Hey, welcome to Grounded with John Tester and Maritza Giorgio. Can everyone hear us? Okay, so here's the deal. We are recording this episode of Grounded live with our first in-person audience. This is scary.
Yeah, don't screw it up.
I'm going to try not to. This is very scary because I actually get very nervous speaking in front of real people. You guys are pros at this.
Weren't
You never spoke in front of real people as
Not
a journalist?
Not a lot. No, I always had a teleprompter. But we are recording this episode. We have our online audience here on the computer. We have our in-person audience here at Brothers Tap, which is, we lost our mic.
1, 2, 3. Here.
Oh, are we there? Can we hear us now? Yes. Brothers Tapworks. That's Steve Bullock's bar. This is former Montana Governor Steve Bullock. Former U.S. Senator John Tester. I'm Maritza Giorgio, and I was a longtime journalist here in the state. And John and I both lost our jobs about the same week last year.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I lost my job long before, so
Yeah, that's okay.
Your microphone is way louder. Is that because you own this place?
that's because I am loud.
Oh, I don't know what. We're gonna get this figured out. This is part of being in a live room. Do we have feedback here? This is other John J-O-N. We're good? Okay, so here's the deal. We've never had a live in-person audience before. We're gonna go over some headlines like we do at the start of every one of our shows. We're gonna let
I've got a question before we get started.
yeah.
How many people in here subscribe to Grounded?
Oh.
All right. Hey, that's good. Thank you very much. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you.
It's good.
That's good. Yeah, we
It's
had
good.
some hands.
It's good.
Mine needs to be louder. How?
Well, then turn up B up there.
Oh yeah. Turn up B. We're going to thank our online audience for your patience and our in-person audience. Okay, is that better? Oh, there
Much
we go. So we're going to go over some headlines like we do in the beginning, but we're going to let Governor Bullock join in on that and provide his commentary. Then we are going to continue the conversation with Jeff Mangan. We've had a lot of people ask us about Citizens United, campaign finance, and there's been a lot of attention in the last week, especially nationally, on what's happening right here in Montana. We've had people from across the country ask us to weigh in on this and tell people about it and what's happening and what they can do. So we are going to have that conversation, and we will take some comments at the end from our in-person audience, and we will also be live on our Substack and YouTube channels where we have hopefully questions coming in. We already have a comment. Tester and Bullock, a better time in Montana, they say. So
You got it.
that's good.
And so you know, for those of you that don't know, and most of the folks in this room probably do know, Jeff Mangan is the brains behind the initiative to keep corporate money out of our elections here in Montana. So we'll be hearing from him.
Can I also add, so this is the first time we've ever done a live podcast, and
Yeah.
David Axelrod and Michael Murphy have what's called Hacks on Tap. And they've always said they want to come to Montana, but in case you can see
Oh.
mine, Axe and Murphy, John Tester and Maritza are much better than you ever would be.
Yeah. And we're doing it.
Hey,
We are
thank
doing it in a bar too.
I'm gonna-
Okay,
I'm
so
gonna tilt
it's
this
good.
up so we can get our. Okay, there we go. Got some headroom there. So let's start with some headlines. Everyone sound good? This story is everywhere. I'm sure you've all heard about it if you're watching the news. Last week, a Washington Post report came out. It's putting a lot of focus on Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. And the U.S. launched a missile on a boat believed to be carrying drugs. Okay, and as the smoke cleared, this report says that commanders spotted 2 survivors clinging to the side of a boat. And that's when the Washington Post reports that the commanders ordered a second strike to kill everybody, which was allegedly what Pete Hegseth had ordered. Today, the White House basically confirmed that the U.S. ordered the second strike. Now, we are not in an official war with drug traffickers. Even if we were, legal and military scholars say this would be considered a war crime. And then I should note that Hegseth doesn't really appear to be worried about this because he put up a political cartoon. You'll see it on the TVs here in the room in a minute this weekend, kind of making fun of the whole thing. But it does seem like the Trump administration is trying to put some distance here between the White House and Hegseth. And even Rand Paul had some comments basically saying this is not permitted. So what are your thoughts?
Maritza, back up a little bit. The White House is trying to put space between themselves and Hegseth when the White House says, yeah, we did this?
Well, at first they were this weekend. The president said,
I don't know anything about this," is what the president said last
I don't
night.
know anything about this, and I wouldn't have made that call. And then today, the White House confirmed, yes, that was our order.
You go first, Governor, and then I'll chime in if you leave any scraps for me.
So here's where the cup is half full from my perspective. Like, it's more than Rand Paul, right? It's Roger Wicker, who you served with. It's the same on the House side. What's his name? Mike Rogers. So both Armed Service Committee Republicans. This is probably the first break other than the Epstein where Republicans said, this administration isn't doing something right. And think about that. We're almost a year in. So there's, I guess, our one ray of sunshine is that maybe a few of the Republican electeds will start getting a spine when things aren't quite right. And then the other piece is, like, as you noted, Maritza, that I think you said we haven't declared war, right?
And it hasn't been approved by Congress.
And I've heard some say, well, it's either a war crime or it's murder. So hopefully this is something that, look, irrespective of partisanship, folks say we're better than this as a people and a country. And hopefully now you'll have some Republican members actually do some of the oversight that they should have been doing all year long.
Yep, and they call for an inquiry, which is a giant first step, but it isn't really the step they should be taking. They should have hearings on this. They should have hearings, and they should bring Hegseth in front of the Armed Services Committee in the House and the Senate, chaired by the two individuals you just talked about, Governor, and let the people ask questions about why this was done. I can tell you that from my perspective, what has set this country apart from every other country in the world my entire lifetime and for generations before is that we have a respect for life here in this country. In third world nations, they don't have that respect for life. And when you see this kind of crap going on, it goes totally against what we are as a nation. And it doesn't make any sense. We won't get into the point about why are they using these methods and instead of trying to catch these folks and getting information out of them and then using that information to try to stop the flow. No, they're just hitting them with bombs, probably pretty damn expensive bombs, quite frankly. And then when there's one or two clinging to the ship, we're going to kill those bastards too. And it's unbelievable that the White House is behind this. It doesn't make any sense. I shouldn't say that. It's totally believable the White House is behind this because we've seen a lot of the stuff that they've been doing that you shake your head at, and then you go, oh my God, that's right. Yeah, he is president.
And this weekend, when asked about this Washington Post reporting on the Sunday shows, a lot of the Republicans said, well, those are anonymous sources and there's no proof. But unless I'm wrong, I haven't seen any proof of drugs on the boats.
Well, I haven't heard about that, but I also heard those same representatives say, well, if this turns out to be true, it's a war crime.
Right.
Well, so the White House has admitted to it. Get them in, have hearings, hold people accountable. That's what Congress needs to do. That's what Article 1 of the Constitution says to do. As the governor's already pointed out, Governor Bullock, this is the first time, well, there's been a couple times, but this is really the first time where they've actually gone against what the president's done and said, this doesn't quite pass the smell test. So we'll see.
Okay, so here's the next big question. This has all been justified with the White House saying this is to stop the illegal flow of drugs into our country. So why then would the president pardon former Honduran president, the president who was at the center of a huge drug case, found guilty of conspiring with drug traffickers to flood the U.S. with cocaine? Even Senator Bill Cassidy, who is a Republican in the Senate, said, why would we pardon this guy?
Great question, Bill. And by the way, Cassidy is a decent man. I shouldn't say that because he's running for re-election. It might be the kiss of death. But the truth is Cassidy is a decent man. And I don't know. Maybe it's for the same reason they gave 20 or 40 billion dollars to Argentina. Maybe certain people have investments in Honduras and they want to prop those investments up. I don't know, but I can tell you it goes absolutely counter to what they're saying. On one hand, they're saying, drugs are a big problem. We're going to stop it, but we're going to pardon the guy that said he was going to drive it down the snouts of, what do they call them? That's a tough question because they didn't ask this ahead of time.
I don't know what you're talking about.
The president of Honduras during his
Oh,
trial
I have this.
said he was going to jam it down the throats of
I have this.
what
Hold
were
on.
they called?
What
were they?
The gringos. Noses.
Gringos. That's it.
Stuff
The gringos.
drugs up the gringos' noses.
Got the gringos' noses. I mean, that sounds pretty wicked to me. This guy should not be pardoned, but neither should the January 6th people who stormed the Capitol be pardoned, as well as a whole bunch of other folks that this president has pardoned.
Yeah, think about, so yesterday he said, I know nothing about these bombs or the killing of individuals on these ships. And the president justified this pardon by saying, I had many friends asking me to do so. And to the senator's point, and I guess it was many friends that said, well, let's pardon the head of one of the biggest crypto exchanges that are carrying the Trump money as well. Or another donors, basically someone that just gave to the Trump administration that ran a company that he donated to right thereafter. 17 plus pardons this year, most of them around January 6th or January 2020, but it's also completely blowing up the system, right? The system used to be the DOJ, the lawyers would actually have some role in it. DOJ doesn't even know when he's going to issue a pardon. Or again, it used to be when you pardoned, if you committed fraud, you still had to pay restitution. You still had to pay the individuals that you had defrauded. That's gone as well. So I don't think there's any real justification that I've seen. So he has many friends say, oh, we should just let this guy skate.
We had an entire episode about this with former pardon attorney Liz Oyer. And if you haven't seen it, I mean, go watch that episode because she brought up just incredible points about how it's so different at her job.
Little self-promotion, but it was a damn good podcast.
Hey, it was a good podcast.
Aren't they all though?
That's
Really?
true. It
Yeah.
is.
Do you know how many of you have seen Governor?
I wake up watching them. I go to sleep listening to
I
them.
knew it.
That's
I
good.
knew it. Okay, so
And he just burnt down Axelrod Murphy, so that's okay.
yeah, that's right. That's right. As a journalist, I have to talk about this because over the weekend, the White House published on the official White House government website, whitehouse.gov, what they're calling a media bias tracker. It lists actually individual reporters from CNN, MSNBC, ABC, Reuters, and they labeled them hostile or biased. They're targeting these journalists by name. I don't have to tell you what happens when the White House targets people by name. And critics are saying this is what we see in countries like Russia, and just a real clear effort to muzzle any kind of dissent here.
Okay, where to start? I'm going to start with a Montana story. All right, can I do that?
Please.
So in the crowd today is Mike Dennison. Mike Dennison, it's good to have you here. Mike Dennison is one of the best political reporters the
That's
state
right.
of Montana has ever had. And this might surprise you, but I don't think it surprises Mike Dennison. There were many nights I went to bed and I was cussing Mike Dennison for the story that he wrote. Why? Because I didn't want that story wrote as a public official. Dennison's job was to hold the public officials accountable. I was a public official. I didn't want that story written. This is part of our democracy, folks. And we have seen what's happened to press, local press. It's been totally pretty much annihilated long before this president got in. And he's adding to it. And when you have the national press that's afraid to ask questions because they're going to be called out by name, somebody needs to stand up and say, this is a bridge too far. If we're going to have a democracy in this country that works, we have to have freedom of the press. And depending on who the story is written on, I guarantee you, every story will have somebody that says, that was totally unfair. That reporter should have never written that story. And in those cases, by the way, Those are probably pretty damn good stories. And so the president, once again, is on the wrong track as far as preservation of democracy in this country.
Senator Tester and I don't agree on everything, but we both agree that we didn't always like Mike Dennison. And look,
I
almost,
love Mike Dennison. I
yeah,
will say that.
of
He's my
course, because
competitor.
you're part of the
He was
club.
my competitor, though.
You're part of the club. Yeah, well, look, like, absolutely, John. There were times where I'm like, I cannot believe that they're going to write this story. But that's part of the accountability and what every elected official should actually face. And the notion that, look, where are we right now? Again, not even a year in, managing the press pool, saying it used to be actually the journalists that would make the decision of who was going to be part of the press pool and travel with the presser. Saying certain journalists can't come in. The FCC saying ABC and CBS, we might revoke your license because we disagree with this. The lawsuits against 60 Minutes for defamation. Defamation against a public official is damn near an impossible standard to meet. So this is one where, look, not everybody always loves journalists. You can disagree with them. But when we lose that sunshine and transparency, if a journalist is saying, I can't report this because I might upset the elected, we as a country are in a lot of trouble.
And that's happening. That's happening in newsrooms across the country right now. I have a lot of friends in both national newsrooms and local newsrooms where that is a conversation happening weekly.
Yeah, it's not good.
And it's something, though, to bring also closer to home, because the senator mentioned it as well. I think what we have one local printed newspaper in the entire state right now. And look, we need to make sure to support the journalism that exists, certainly. But it's also concerning because at the end of the day, the local printed newspaper wasn't necessarily for all of you that would come out for something like this. It's for the person that wanted to read the sports page and then learned a little bit about what was going on at the school board meeting or government and got frustrated. So we need to continue to support journalists and journalism, not only nationally, but here at home in Montana as well.
And that's why you should subscribe to the podcast Grounded.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Pretty good, huh?
He's making up for lost
Look at
time
that.
tonight. We have a comment on our Substack that says, even in Massachusetts, we don't have many newspapers. It's true. It's happening across the
Across the country.
Okay, so there's a renewed debate around our withdrawal from Afghanistan. Really awful story. Oh,
Sorry.
Ooh,
Mic
okay.
drop.
Mic drop. Really awful story. 2 National Guard soldiers were shot in Washington, D.C. last week. One of them died from their injuries, Sarah Beckstrom. The alleged gunman is a refugee from Afghanistan who worked in an elite counterterrorism unit, actually helping the United States fight the Taliban on the ground. There's a lot we still don't know here. There's a lot moving through the court systems. But here's the conversation that took place on the Sunday shows. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem blamed Joe Biden and said that this person was not properly vetted under the Biden administration, even though he was granted asylum this year by the Trump administration. This also comes after the president signed something that voided anything that President Biden signed with an auto pen. So what are your, I'll add to that over the weekend, DC Metro Police were escorting National Guard troops around DC, and they just ordered 500 more Guard troops into DC.
So we'll start with the fact that if Biden did such a horrible job and the auto pen stuff was illegal and this person wasn't vetted correctly, why did the Trump administration give him the ability to stay in this country? Because that's what happened. I mean, talk about playing people for fools. On one hand, they're saying Biden is horrible. He did all this stuff and he did it wrong. And if that's true, why would you accept any of the work that they did? Why wouldn't you go back and do it over again with your own people that you think are competent? And that's number one, okay? That's number one. But actually, even before that, Maritza, this happened the day before Thanksgiving. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
I believe that's correct. Can you imagine what this family's going through right now?
Right.
With that guardsman, both that got shot, the woman that passed away, I don't know if the other person has or not, should have been having Thanksgiving with their family. And what should have happened is they should have reinstated the cuts that Doge took out of the government to train police officers on how to do their job, because quite frankly, they're the ones that should be responsible for this. And they've taken that money away from both urban and rural America because of DEI or some other goofy damn issue. And they've replaced them with our military, as China and Russia are going crazy in this world, and this president's not paying much attention to them. I can tell you that for a fact. But instead, we're focused on domestic problems and in putting our guardsmen on the street to do the jobs of police. It's just wrong on so many fronts.
And I agree with the senator. First of all, recognize the tragedy, right? That I was commander in chief of the Montana National Guard. We asked so much of our soldiers and airmen, and there are 2 West Virginia families who will be forever changed as a result of this. But then it's also the notion that we're putting our National Guard, like those folks aren't trained for law enforcement.
Correct.
And
Right.
most of them actually aren't doing law enforcement. They're doing beautification of communities. They're having that presence.
You've been to DC in the past few months, right? Yeah. I mean, the three of us,
Felt safer than ever, Maritza.
the three of us have all been to DC the last few months, and I never saw them doing anything more than
Yeah.
just standing on the corner, helping with beautification, like you said, talking to people walking on the street.
And think about also like the other challenge, because you look at like this has happened in California, Oregon, Illinois, Tennessee, and courts time and time again have said this isn't what we use our National Guard for, right? It was, I think, a week before this tragedy, and a DC court said this shouldn't happen
That's right.
either. And when we ask so much of our National Guard members, which are citizen soldiers, like the last thing that they should be doing is policing their own in their communities. So I also agree, like, look, if we need law enforcement, let's have law enforcement.
Put more cops
And
on
let's
the
make
street.
sure to fund cops on the street.
Yep.
But let's not use our National Guard as basically just for pictures more than actually keeping communities safe. And that's what's happening here.
And wouldn't you think it'd be a good idea if those people that have back the blue signs up actually do back the blue?
Yeah.
Yeah. And actually do put more cops on the street and know what they're doing, well-trained police officers. I mean, it's so crazy. And it's sad because a good person's life was lost for sure.
20 years old, too. 20 years old. Everything we're talking about is ending up in the courts. So why stop there? Let's continue with this. Another blow to the Trump administration today. An appeals court ruled that Alina Habba has been serving unlawfully as the U.S. attorney in New Jersey.
No way.
She was never confirmed by the Senate, nor was she appointed by district trial court judges. Those are the normal 2 paths for this. This ruling comes after a federal judge found that Lindsay Halligan was also unlawfully appointed, which basically killed the government's cases against former FBI Director James Comey and Letitia James. No doubt this all brings us to the Supreme Court. So what comes next?
Not that there was a case against Comey and Letitia James, but what the hell? The governor gets this one.
He's a lawyer.
He's an attorney.
Yeah.
He's got that. Go ahead, counselor.
Well, I hope a couple things come. First of all, that is exactly right, Maritza. It's either they have to be appointed by the district judges or they actually have to be confirmed by the Senate. There's this thing called the Federal Vacancy Reform Act.
Ooh.
I sued William Perry Penley, right? Because he had
yeah.
never been confirmed by the Senate, and said, if you're going to serve in a job, you actually have to get confirmed by the U.S. Senate. That's that whole checks and balances thing that we have. And time again, what we're seeing, like this administration has withdrawn more individuals that were nominated than any administration since Reagan. But also, we grab a hold of this most recent, this Habba and Lindsay before that. But the same things happened in Nevada as well. The same things happened in the Northern District of New York. So these are U.S. attorneys that aren't confirmed by the Senate. And often, like what you have when you talk about the rule of law, you also have this moment where there's not a heck of a lot of lawyers that would bring some of these cases against Comey and others. So, what Alina Habba was Trump's personal attorney before she
Right.
got in.
And so was Lindsey Halligan.
So the question is, what happens next? Well, you sure as hell hope that the court system holds, because I tried to give the ray of sunshine of here a couple times that Republican members are standing up, but by and large they haven't. And there's been a few court cases that we can certainly question as well. But it ought to be pretty black and white and clear here of what actually the law says to be appointed. And if that's not there, you hope the appellate courts, I think the Third Circuit has already upheld saying that she's gone. You hope when this goes to the U.S. Supreme Court, they actually, I don't know, follow the law.
You are a ray of sunshine.
No, you are my sunshine.
I thought you were going to throw an F-bomb in there.
No,
You're really
I-
controlling
I
yourself
am-
tonight.
Absolutely. You know, there's people here.
Okay, so this is something I read up on more than I planned to over the weekend, because sometimes I help Senator Tester with research.
Occasionally.
Other duties as assigned?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay, look, I don't type well, okay?
So there is a special election in Tennessee's 7th congressional district tomorrow, Tuesday. Trump has endorsed the Republican candidate, but that didn't do very much for the candidates he endorsed in last month's election. So what do you think? What's going to happen tomorrow?
So for folks that don't know, that seat's about 20 points Republican. And the most recent polls out on that Tennessee seat show a slight lead by the Republican over the Democrat. But my belief is this is an incredibly instructive race, because this is a very rural district in Tennessee. And if this lady wins, I think it sends a hell of a message to the White House that his policies in rural America are not working. And guess what? His policies in rural America are not working. And if they send a lady Democrat from this district that has been Republican for a long, long, long time, I just think it's going to send a hell of a message. I don't know if she's going to win or not. I think it's going to be very close. It's going to depend on who votes, but I think she's got a fair shot at it, quite frankly. And like I said, if that were to happen, being a district that is vast majority rural, I think it sends a message to the White House on what they're doing with tariffs, what they're doing to rural medicine, and what they're doing with a lot of other stuff. Not upholding personal rights and those kind of things. So it'll be interesting to see what happens on Tuesday. Tuesday night's going to be interesting. Normally people from Montana don't tune into to a Tennessee congressional number 7. But I got a notion people all over this country are going to be tuning in and watching that race.
Yeah, it's a Trump 20 plus 22 district.
Yeah.
So look, even if she doesn't win, if it's that close, it ought to be a message for a whole lot of folks. And the White House ought to listen to it. But, I'm not sure it's the National Democratic Party that's made it close yet. It's the challenges that we have right now.
Yeah, 100%. And I would tell you that I think if it's close and the Republican wins, I think the White House blows it off. I think if the Democrat wins, I think the White House goes, shit,
You
we
bet.
maybe have to look at our policies here because we're not winning. And by the way, I would bet you Maritza is going to talk about a poll next.
Whoa, you
Pretty
must
good,
be
aren't I?
psychic.
God,
huh?
you two have worked together
Yeah,
long
it's
enough that
unbelievable.
it's like a
No,
mind meld.
It just
Yeah.
means that he read my notes, which is
Yeah.
a first.
And I wouldn't want
Yeah.
to spend
I don't
I wouldn't want to
type well.
spend 8 hours in either of their brains. So now that they're melded together,
You
that's
really
that much
don't.
scarier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's actually accurate. You don't want to be with either of our brains. I was going to mention that this comes after Marjorie Taylor Greene announced that she's resigning.
Yep.
We had another Republican member announce that he's resigning
Nels.
over the weekend. Nels from Texas. I do think though his identical twin brother said, "Oh, I'm going to run for his seat and support the MAGA movement." I mean, if you're an identical twin, why not just go in? Just have a right?
Just don't even resign, just
Yeah,
swap, right?
Just swap.
Yeah.
I mean, no, I'm just kidding. But I do want to put up this poll because obviously, I mean, the November election was a huge win for Democrats across the country. And this poll that just came out from Gallup shows that President Trump's approval rating dropped another 5 points, 36%. That's the lowest of his second term. This graph, though, is just really remarkable. If you look at the top line, and there's a red line at the top, that is congressional job approval by party. So the drop in congressional approval by Republicans went from 61% in July to 23% today. 61 to 23%. Chris Deliza first put this up on Substack today, and so thanks, Chris, for pointing this out. But it's a stunning number.
Yeah, I mean, I think it shows a couple things. I think it shows that the policies aren't working. And I think even a bigger thing that it shows is Congress forgot to read the Constitution, and they're not living up to their constitutional duties as Article 1 folks within the Constitution. And I think you're going to continue to see this. But what's interesting is that the Republicans fear that if they challenge the president, they're going to get a MAGA primary. But if the Democrat wins this Tennessee race, what it says is that the MAGA primary isn't your problem. Your problem is the general election. And I think it will give those folks in Congress some backbone. And I think they need backbone to be able to make the lines go back up. As long as they are a do-nothing Congress that rubber stamps everything the administration does, you're going to see those numbers continue to fall.
And I guess it, like on the one hand, the numbers you put up are shocking, but on the other, are they? Like the only thing that they've really passed so far is what? The tax cuts that
For the billionaires.
the billionaires get everything. I think like 50 of the largest companies pay zero in taxes. It does nothing for you and I. And we're about to see our insurance rates for so many on exchange go up 150%. You look at what they've actually done, like things like going back to media. I mean, I don't know, the public broadcasting used to be a bipartisan issue. And the impoundment where we saw it in Montana, what percentage of our federal employees are veterans?
Yeah, they got
It's
canned.
big, and they get
Big,
canned
yeah.
for no reason. So there's not a damn thing that the Congress has done so far that actually helps out folks in this country. So
Amen.
on the one hand, it ought to be those numbers, and you sure as hell hope that, again, for the good of the country, this is bigger than politics.
That's
Is
right.
that you sure as hell hope that at some point people get a message that say, like I believe the senator did, it's like, I work for folks at home, even folks that don't always agree with me. And that's what we knew when John Tester was there. And we're just in this moment, right, where they should be less popular because they're sure as hell not worrying about your egg prices. They're not worrying about your insurance prices. They're not doing a damn thing about inflation. They're not doing things about the things people talk about at their families or their kids each and every night. Their lives ain't getting better.
Governor, go back to talking about John Tester.
Oh, I could talk
Well,
about John Tester
listen.
all night.
We have so many fun, familiar faces in the audience, but former Lieutenant Governor is also here. And he just dropped off all these stickers of you too. And a few months ago,
You were on those stickers
but
too.
but he
Yeah, but-
sent
Yeah.
sent stickers a few months ago that was they said thank you, John Tester.
Really?
Yeah, I sent it to you.
Somebody else must have done that. Cooney couldn't do that.
Cody did it, and he gave you the hat,
Yeah,
the very first hat that started this whole hat thing that we do.
yeah, the one that
The
said
votes.
that I barely won.
Yeah, the one that
okay.
you eked by, but
Yeah, no, that's good.
no, it's,
Well,
it's
we love the Coney. That's for damn sure.
right.
That's good.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
We do have a question on Substack.
Yep.
Bob wants to know, why are these people resigning? Why are these
'Cause-
Republican members resigning?
I can tell you why Congress isn't any fun. They weren't elected to be a rubber stamp. They know it. They know what they're doing is wrong, and they're just saying, "Hey, I can't do this anymore. This isn't what I signed up for." And that, whether they admit it or not, that's why they're resigning. I can tell you that folks have been back to Congress that sees what's gone on this Congress in both the Senate and the House will tell you that it's miserable to be a Democrat, but it's also miserable to be a Republican, and that's why they're quitting.
but why would Marjorie Taylor Greene resign before her term is up?
Maybe she's going to run for governor.
Hmm. Somebody else heard president. I don't know. I feel like there's a lot going on there. I have a feeling we might be reading a book
You know,
soon.
I left the message on the phone. He would respond to that. That's good.
We did, yeah.
You're going to get her on.
We
your
tried.
We tried,
podcast.
but she hasn't responded.
She
you
hasn't
know.
responded.
She knows that Maritza is really a tough interview to hold people accountable.
I know Mike Dennison, but maybe we could get him to come sub us. Okay, well, that's all I have for headlines. Anything else you two want to talk about before we kick the former governor off stage?
We'll give him the
Oh, I didn't know I was leaving, but
Yeah.
okay.
Well,
Go ahead.
you
No,
know what?
no, it's
No,
good. It's
no.
good. I was kidding.
As
Here's the
long
deal,
as we
Governor.
can-
Don't
we can help figure out how to get our team to support
Well,
people.
don't act like this is too far. But we'll get Jeff Mangan to talk about important stuff, and then we'll bring you back when we do questions from the audience.
That sounds
Does that
perfect.
sound
Okay.
good?
All right.
All right.
Great.
Thank
Okay.
you so much, Governor.
All right.
Thank you.
There you go. Governor of the great state of Montana. Unfortunately, not anymore, but good. Next up, we've got a guy that I served in the state senate with, who was my seatmate. Incredibly.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
yeah, no, he's got secrets on me like nobody else. And he
Well, that's good.
he did a great job as a state senator. He did a great job as commissioner of political practice for the state of Montana. And he's doing a great job on this initiative. And so, Jeff Mangan, we are more than happy to have you here. Thank you very much for taking time out of your busy day to be here. Now, do you want to ask the first question, or do I get to ask it, Marisa?
Well, do you have one in mind? Oh,
I was just going to
Jeff wants
say,
to
I was
say
just going to say thank you. I
Yeah,
appreciate the invite.
absolutely. Well, we figure we got to do something to help balance out the governor a little bit. Okay?
let me start here, if you don't mind, unless you want to start with
No,
Citizens
go
United.
ahead. It's okay. Ladies first.
So when I think about Citizens United, the Supreme Court case that came down in 2010, basically saying that corporations have the same rights as people and allowed billions and billions and billions of dollars to flow into our elections pretty much overnight. I also think about the day I learned about the Supreme Court overturning Roe v. Wade with the Dobbs decision and how immediately everyone kind of said, well, wait, what now? What path is there now? I mean, this is the law of the land. This is the Supreme Court. It's such a consequential decision. How is there a path forward? But what we're seeing is states stepping up. And so I've seen a lot of national news about what you are doing right here in Montana as a blueprint for what can be done across the rest of the country as far as overturning the effects of Citizens United. So let's talk about that. And I'm wondering if you can explain it in a way that my 14-year-old would easily understand.
Well, I'll try. And thank you. And I always loved Mike. So, but he'd always ask me questions. I was just never able to give him an answer. So, at any rate, no, great. No, this has been quite the ride the last year. If for those of folks that don't know, I was Montana's Commissioner of Political Practices, 2017, appointed by Governor Bullock, confirmed 49-1 by a Republican-led Senate in Montana. So went through that process legitimately. And
I'm glad you got that in. That's
kind
good.
of following through. But as when I left, you can only serve one term for 6 years. And when I left in 2023, one of the things that always bothered me that we weren't able to address the effects of Citizens United, all of this money pouring into campaigns. And while Montana has strong campaign finance transparency disclosure laws because of the Disclose Act in 2015, we weren't able to, because of Citizens United and the loss of the Corrupt Practices Act from 1912, we weren't able to stop the flow of corporate and dark money into our elections. And literally since 2010 and the passage of Citizens United, people have given up. There's nothing we can do. It's the First Amendment. Corporations are people. And, hell, there hadn't even been polling done on Citizens United for 15 years. But a friend of mine who worked for the FEC started doing some research. We all of us policy wonks and campaign finance, always looking for ways, how can we address Citizens United? He discovered a mechanism, a way that folks hadn't thought about in over 150 years. And it was simply, right now, all corporations in Montana and across the United States are granted all general powers by the charter the states issue them. And the states issue each charter in their states, not the federal government. So each state is responsible for their corporate law in issuing of those charters. But for 150 years, for a variety of different reasons, states have just entered or just issued general corporate charters that basically provide corporations, the courts have deemed, the same rights as humans, the same rights as you and I, given to a corporation. That's where the corporate personhood information comes up. But what the Supreme Court never did, and folks have never done, is taken away the rights of the state to foundationally change that charter in the first place. What we've been doing for the last 150 years, what we did was the Disclose Act, what we did with the Corrupt Practices Act of 1912, and others, is we regulated a power the state had already given a corporation. That's what we've been doing. And some of them were held up by the courts, some of them weren't. Citizens United, some in the state of Montana. So we're going back to the foundation. We're going back saying, you know, the states have the right to assign what powers a corporation has in the first place. And we're simply saying, states, you don't have, corporations do not have the power to spend in politics. Simple as that. You don't have the power. The right doesn't attach to that power. So we're not overturning Citizens United. We're making Citizens United irrelevant. We're making citizens, it's not even a workaround. It's just going to be moot in the state of Montana. It'll be moot in the next state that passes it, and moot in the next state that passes it, until all states, with the exception of probably Delaware, it'll be moot everywhere but Delaware. And Delaware can have that.
Okay, so explain this to me in a way. So states or corporations that are based in Montana cannot spend their money in Montana. And then if every other state does that, then it basically eliminates that throughout the country.
Well, it's even better than that for Montana. We were the first one. Not only does it affect, first of all, it affects local, state, federal races. We're talking about corporate law, not campaign finance disclosure law. We're not going to be regulating something, the power they already have. We're going to take away that power in the first place. So it's corporate law. So corporations, Montana corporations, old and new, will not be able to spend in Montana elections. Every corporation outside of the state of Montana that wants to do business in the state of Montana already have to file, and this is in every other state, have to file as a foreign corporation. So if they want to do business in the state of Montana, they have to file as a foreign corporation. And basically what they're doing when they file as a corporation is saying they're going to follow the structure of Montana. So we just eliminated all of that money coming into Montana. Those outside states can still spend in all those other elections until they pass this in other states, but they won't be able to spend in Montana. So we killed two birds with one stone.
Because what they're doing, when you're a corporation and you file to be a corporation in Montana, they say you can be a corporation in Montana, but you can't contribute to campaigns. That's part of the charter of being a corporation. So it's going to be really interesting to see if we can get this passed. I know Maritza's got the numbers. Maybe you've got them too. I've got my own personal numbers. But tell me how, since 2010, we're getting the right millennium here. Since 2010, tell me how the money has flowed into these campaigns.
I do have a graph up too, billionaire spending in presidential elections. And you can see from Citizens United just how much it's exploded.
2010 is when the Supreme Court decision on Citizens United came out.
Yeah, and then this billionaire chart, but all the charts regarding Citizens United and spending in elections look like this. The main one, independent expenditures, which corporations now can spend unlimited in elections through independent expenditures. In 2008, prior to Citizens United, federal presidential election year, basically $1.4 million spent, $140 million nationwide spent in elections. In 2024, $4.21 billion. It increased almost 2,800%. I mean, it literally is, there's this flat line, and we'll just say Montana, flat line from 1889, 2010, straight up 2024. And it's just going to continue. In Montana, we say the same thing. Montana, Max Baucus, 2008, independent expenditure in his Senate race. You'll love this senator. $38,000 in independent expenditure. Independent expenditures in that race. $38,000. It's almost embarrassing when I take this on the road and talk about it because of all of the numbers. It's not embarrassing. I love it because it's like in your race, $180 million in independent expenditures in 2024, Sheehy versus Tester, between corporate money and dark money independent expenditures. And Senator Tester will be the first one to tell you that he got more dark money in his race than his opponent, than Senator Sheehy. So this isn't about bipartisanship. Both parties, both folks, red, blue, are putting all this money into campaigns. All I'm worried about is the green in the middle.
Yeah, and the fact is that when I went around the state of Montana, when I was a U.S. Senator, Democrats and Republicans equally talked to me about this issue. There was just as many Republicans who were upset about it as there were Democrats, and vice versa, because they were sick and tired of turning on the TV for 6, 8, 10 year and a half before the election, and all you see is campaign ads that drive you insane. And when I tell people, if you think it drives you insane, you ought to be the candidate. I mean, it's unbelievable. So now,
Well, hold on. I want to ask you a question.
Sure, go ahead.
Don't
You
be
can't do
annoyed.
that.
Yes, I can.
Okay.
So Republicans and Democrats
Yeah.
frustrated by this
Yeah.
across
Yeah.
the country.
Yep.
And yet, 121 members of Congress have introduced or co-sponsored legislation to overturn Citizens United. I took a look before you got the boot. You either introduced or co-sponsored a joint resolution with this specific language in it, going back to 2012, proposing an amendment to the Constitution of the United States,
Which is a high bar.
to clarify the authority of Congress and the states to regulate corporations, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
So if this has bipartisan support and bipartisan outrage, why is it going to take the states going forward here, and why isn't it happening?
Well,
in
because
Congress?
most of the good legislations that pass at the federal level is led by the states to begin with. I'll just tell you that. That's why state legislatures are so important, because those legislatures really set the standard, and the federal government takes those bills up later. That's number one. And I can tell you that the reason it hasn't passed in Washington, D.C. is people haven't put pressure on their elected representatives. And I can tell you there are Democrats and Republicans alike that think this is a really bad idea, because there's a lot of people making a living off of these campaigns now. And so they're saying, no, we don't want to do it. And by the way, we think we get the advantage when in fact democracy loses because of this. The American people lose because of this. You want to talk about why elected officials won't go talk to the press? Because they don't have to. Because they can buy their ads. They can tell the people what they stand for, because there's so damn much money out there. Here's the thing that's ironic, and this is a question for you, Jeff. Who's challenging this right now?
Who's challenging me and the Montana plan?
Who's challenging this plan?
Well, two groups went in with amicus to the Montana Supreme Court. That's where we're at now, waiting on our ballot language. Those two groups were the Montana Mining Association and the Montana Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah, and I don't have to tell you about the mining law that was passed 150 years ago. We wouldn't want to update that now. So there's a good reason there. But the Chamber of Commerce, really? I'm going to tell you, when the campaigns would go on in both 12 and 18, we would get calls into my Senate office saying, would you please take those ads down? We've got a furniture sale that we're trying to pass, and we can't buy time to advertise our furniture sale. This would help small businesses. Absolutely, unequivocally would help small businesses. Why the Chamber's dipping their toe into this one doesn't make any sense to me at all, unless, of course, the mining industry is funding a good portion of their general.
Yeah, and I truly believe, I truly believe just anecdotal. I truly believe local chambers of commerce feel like you just said. It's the state chamber of commerce, lots of multinational corporations, national corporations in that mix. But let me just say, I'll just pick up on that. The nice part about the Montana plan, and that's what we called it, by the way, first in the nation to do this. And it basically because Montana rolled up its sleeves in the early 1900s, passed the Crop Practices Act in 1912. One of the reasons that Senator Tester, I imagine, besides the fact that he really wanted to do it, because in 2012, after Citizens United passed, Montana passed I-166 that basically said is the policy of the state of Montana that corporations are not people and don't have the same rights as people. And we passed that 75% in 2012, just a policy statement against what that policy statement said, and it's still on the books. The policy was that elected officials such as Senator Tester and others, was their duty to find a solution to ending Citizens United. Basically what it says. It's just a policy, it's still on the books, but Montanans were pissed in 2012 and put it on. It's just kind of a field statement, but that's where Montana was. So when people ask today, why Montana? Why are you starting this Montana? It's easy for me. Just go back to 1912. Go back to 2012. Look at our Constitution from 1972. The reason I'm able to do this is because of everyone in this room. We all have the ability. We have these, our Constitution gave us the ability to take this to the people, either through constitutional initiative, which is what we're attempting to do, or through ballot initiative, which we may have to do, or through legislation. We have three different ways we can do it. But I'm sticking with the people of the state of Montana because I know what the people of the state of Montana wants. Because if I asked you, do you believe there's too much money in politics? You're going to say, not a one. Does anybody think there's not enough money in politics?
We do have a comment about that too. I mean, how much money that we're putting into these campaigns could be spent fixing the problems that all of the politicians are talking about.
Bingo.
So I want to back up a little bit just to give our audience a little bit of a primer because you mentioned that you're before the Supreme Court right now. That is because Montana's Attorney General basically tried to void this effort by saying it was legally insufficient. Your group filed a lawsuit with the Supreme Court right now. What's next? What if the court sides with the AG?
Depending on what the court says and what, we're still fully confident. We believe the Supreme Court is going to find our initiative legally sufficient and be able to move forward. If they don't, we will take a look to see what the Supreme Court did. And we're already writing another constitutional initiative and or a ballot initiative that we can forward. So this isn't going away if they say there's more than one subject to vote on. So
Good work.
Are you?
Thanks for doing this.
I'm not done. I'm not quite done, but yes, good work. I want to know because I've read about this in Robert Reich's Substack, the former labor secretary of the United States. Okay. He wrote about this and literally said Montana might have the answer here. So what are you hearing from other states? Are they following suit? Are you getting phone calls? Are we going to see this kind of spread across the country?
Yeah, there already is. It's just been this groundswell, particularly in the last month and a half, for a variety of different reasons. Robert Reich. We haven't reached out to any of these people. We're just Montana citizens volunteering, grassroots, bottom-up driven. I'll talk about that in a really quick before I leave. And we're just doing the work. And when you do the work, just kind of like they did in 1912 and in 2012, people notice. Pete Buttigieg said something on a stage in Texas a couple of weeks ago. Robert Reich, a couple of others. Issue One, a national C3 organization that is doing work in the campaign finance space, issued a poll and put a poll out that basically said that 75% of Montanans support what we're doing. And not only that, 79% of Americans say that corporate money, corporate dark money in elections can be corrupting or give the appearance of corruption, which is the antithesis of Citizens United. And Citizens United, while everyone thinks what the court said was that, corporations are people, they really didn't say that. What they said is even worse. What they said is independent expenditures by corporations cannot be corrupting. They literally, that's what's written in that. That's the issue. It cannot be corrupting. As a matter of fact, it can't even give the appearance of corruption. That's what Citizens United says. All we have to do anymore is just read our tablets, read our phones, watch our TVs, listen to top of the hour on Grounded podcast.
Thanks.
You'll understand whether or not there's corruption by both sides. So one last thing, just so everybody knows, this isn't a Democrat or Republican issue. It's nonpartisan, grassroots. No one came, no organization, no C4 came and wrote us a check to get this done. No one wants to touch it because, like John said, they put them out of business. C Corps, limited liability, nonprofits, C4s, unions, associations are all covered by the Montana plan. There's not a loophole. It doesn't make a carve out for a special interest. It treats everybody the same. And that's the reason that 75% of the people support what we're doing. Thank you.
So the last thing, Jeff, before we get to questions, and this comes from a Christian put down a question, and that is that so you want to give out your email so people can figure out how to do this in their state too?
Or if someone's listening and want to know what to do, how to help, how to get it started, what should they do?
So just visit themontanaplan.com or transparentelection.org. Email TEI@transparentelection.org. But to answer your question, because I really didn't, I had three, a state assembly, a state senator, an assemblyman, and a delegate email me today about getting legislation in their state.
Wow.
And we're already up to, I want to say 15 or 16 states that folks on the ground are actually starting to mobilize like we've done in Montana. So once again, Montana is leading the way on this. That's how we're looked at. We've done it before. We're going to do it again, and we're going to lead this all the way when it does pass to the Supreme Court, and maybe in a couple of years it'll be the law of the land.
It'd be great. It'd be absolutely great. So thanks, Jeff.
All right, thank
Appreciate
you,
it.
Jeff. We appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah. So you want
Okay.
a microphone? So just to let the folks on the podcast know, there's a lady sitting at the table to my left that says this piggy is ready to vote.
You stop it. Oh, she is. Oh, she does have
Yeah.
a shirt. I
You hear
love
that?
that. I'm going to guess. I do want one of those. That's my new line for John Tester. I say, quiet piggy.
Wow. Wow. I know.
Okay, do we have any questions? We have another microphone if somebody wants to, anybody? Maybe not. Maybe.
Questions?
Oh,
No.
Oh, yes.
Anyone
Yes.
but Mike
Yeah,
Dennison?
Come on, man.
Mike Dennison.
Really?
We want real
Come
people.
on.
Mike Dennison
He's
is a real
just a
person.
journalist.
He's retired.
Did you turn on the bottom?
Oh, we have some feedback. We have some help. We do have a question or just a comment. Just over 600,000 votes in Montana, $108 million spent on the Senate race. It was more than that, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was over $250 million. It was
Oh.
280
It was a
million.
lot. Okay.
And I'm not sure we have a
Okay.
final count on it even to this day. It was a lot of goddamn money.
All right, Mike Dennison.
I have a question for Jeff Mangan
Oh.
about the initiative.
All right, Mangan, you're up,
Come on,
buddy.
Megan.
No fear for you.
There he is. Okay.
He's right there. He's in
All
the
right.
back.
Jeff, of course, we talked your initiative of Justice Citizens United, and not long after that, there was a decision, Speak Now or Speech Now, that basically, in the aftermath of Citizens United, ripped away all the limits on individuals, like billionaires like Elon Musk, giving to PACs. not corporations, but individuals. I'm just wondering if your initiative passes, would that have any effect on that element of this unlimited money in Montana or in Montana?
Well, no comment. No. No, well, I can't fix everything. No, it wouldn't. It would, but what it would allow is for disclosure for, rather than millionaires and billionaires and those folks trying to hide their money through C4s and remain anonymous, and only the C4 is disclosed. They would actually have to put their name where their money is. So, and we kind of, I mean, you can kind of look at the Michigan or the Wisconsin Supreme Court race just earlier this year. You know, Elon Musk, to his credit, said, "I'm the one who's spending all this money." And when people know how money is being spent, they make accordingly. I do think we need to have limits, but that's not what this does. This basically takes corporations out of the mix. So now corporations and individuals can spend in elections in Montana. After the Montana plan, just individuals. But if they do, it's going to be disclosed and transparent, like what Montana's disclosed act says.
Mike, I'd add one thing on that. Look, this last cycle, $2 billion was spent in dark money, 1.9 billion, right? And if you go back to Citizens United, part of the premise of it all was like, look, with the advent of the internet and everything else, and this is directly out of the case, people will know who's trying to buy politicians. Like, dark money did not exist before then. So even if you can't control individual contributions, at least once you get rid of 501c4s, which are a corporation, which is where all the dark money spends, and really was an issue before Citizens United, then either that money will dry up, or you'll know that whoever it is, be it a company or an individual, is trying to buy this race.
Great question. Others? All right.
This one is for Senator Tester. Thank you for the constitutional amendment you offered, reversing Citizens United. And I don't know what the votes or the co-sponsors look like on that one. Looking on the House side, the most support I've seen for an amendment to get rid of unlimited billionaire spending or individual spending is 68 co-sponsors out of 435. And that's abysmal. That's 15% of the United States House. So on a human level, it's hard to comprehend how more folks wouldn't jump in support of that, but I would love your thoughts on how you take care of that issue.
Yeah, it's because the leadership tells them not to do that. Mitch McConnell has never been for any sort of campaign finance reform whatsoever. He has fought it every step. He's very successful. Mitch is no longer leader of the Senate. It's them now. I can tell you off the record, and out of the Journal, I had many conversations with Thune on Joe Manchin's boat, and he talked about how big money was ruining these elections. So I doubt deep he understands it. Whether he'll do it or not, I don't know. You know, the big money people really do dictate a lot. It's going to take the little guy, just like it did 120 years ago in Montana. It's going to take the little guy standing up and say, enough of this crap. We want our elections back. We want to have our elected representatives have town hall meetings where we're going to have our elected representatives to be able to talk to the press. We want to see our elected representatives in our towns so we can talk to them eyeball to eyeball. It's never going to happen until we get campaign finance reform. I think it is the single biggest problem that we have with democracy today, short of Donald Trump.
We have a question online. Does the DNC decide what money goes to which candidate? How much influence does the DNC have over each candidate? And we can
Yeah, and you can include all of them, but they control it. There are some limits on what they can give to candidates, but they control where they spend their money, just like the C4s control where they spend their money, and the C3s control where they spend their money. The bottom line is there's just too much money in all this. And if Montana can lead the way on this, and like I said, we've done it before, I think it's, the toothpaste is out of the tube, and it's going to be really tough for these guys to stop other states from doing this, because this is common sense stuff. It's just common sense.
We've got a question back here.
Thank you. This question is for Senator Tester. I think it goes without saying for many of us that following politics on a national level is fairly demoralizing. So, given what has been said in the past, if you wanted to make your voice known, that you should call your representative. But yet, I think many of us, perhaps having tried that, have found that Dane, Sheehy, and Downing really don't give a damn of what anyone thinks that's outside of the line that they're willing to tread. So, what is it that we can do beyond vote, beyond make a post, beyond talk to our friends, that can make a difference, that can get through to these people? Because it kind of feels like they're way above and apart, and we're just down here. So what would you suggest that we do?
Well, first of all, don't think for a second that you're down here. If you feel that way, then you've got to not feel that way, because the fact of the matter is we're all on the level. They are in these positions for a limited amount of time, and they're elected to represent the people who elected them, okay? What I would tell you is the same thing I tell everybody. I would continue to write letters, make send emails. And if you still don't get any response, go to the airport. They fly the same flights every week. And by the way, no big deal. They did this to me, so what the hell? Do it to them. You know, catch them when they're getting on Monday morning. Ask them questions, and bring Mike Dennison with you so he can cover it. And the same thing when they get off the airplanes on Thursday evening at 10:30 at the Bozeman Airport. Ask them questions. And by the way, it is just that simple. I flew for 18 years, and it was the same flight every Monday morning, and it was the same flight with few exceptions Thursday night. Once in a while, they'd keep it a little longer, and you'd have to fly back on Friday morning. So unless you're using private jets, which are expensive, and they have to pay out of their own pocket, you know, catch them, ask them questions. They got to get the DC, and they got to get back.
I'd only add that, look, it's a demoralizing time in as much as like actually speaking to your elected officials. Like there aren't town halls or there aren't times where you see them. But don't not get off. Don't still make those phone calls. Like, look, I'm sure, Senator, you got, as I did, that all here are the number of letters that you got on this issue. Here are the
Absolutely.
number of calls you got. So it feels like you're sort of the myth of Sisyphus rolling the rock up the hill, but continue to make those because it
Say that
matters.
again. Say that again.
That's Sisyphus,
Okay,
not
Sisyphus.
syphilis,
I thought you said
John.
Mrs. Sisyphus. So I just want to tell you that we have gotten comment after comment after comment saying that Governor Bullock should run
That
against
John
Steve Daines.
Tester should run against Steve Daines. How about it, ladies and gentlemen?
No,
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I interrupt?
no, Bullock, you got it all wrong. I'm running for president.
Yeah. Tried that.
Yeah, we did try that. Yeah, actually, we get comments all the time that you should run and you should run. So,
Yeah, we could have a primary.
but I think Chester. Did you just make headlines? And now, so somewhere tomorrow, someone's going to say John Tester announced he's running for president.
No. Well, I don't know about that, but that was done for Bullock's benefit anyway.
I don't know. People are saying yes. People, yes, run for Senate again. How's
Yeah.
the beer? They want to know.
The beer is great, and just so you know, I live in a place where the air is a hell of a lot better than it is in Washington D.C. So we'll keep breathing the good air.
Okay. Do we have any more questions from our live in-person audience?
All right, we got one. Oh, I'm going to get him and then you.
I thought Mike Cooney might step up with a question.
No,
Oh.
You can always count on Mike Cooney for a
Yeah.
good question, right?
Right, exactly.
So obviously the elections next year are going to look in Montana are going to look very different than they did this past year.
I hope
Probably,
so.
you know, a couple $100 billion less. What do you see as the way forward, specifically for Democrats? But you just talked about the very, very low approval rating of Congress and Republicans, and we saw the effects of Trump's policies just earlier, or I guess just last month, on election night. So what do you see as the way that Democrats can continue to go forward in this weird time of transition that will provide long-term effects instead of just winning because everyone is mad at Trump right now?
And I think that's a real poor strategy. If you're going to run a campaign that says those guys are horrible and we're a little bit better. Those campaigns don't work, and we've got 20 years of proof of that. Look, there are a lot of issues out there. But if I was running a statewide issue or statewide race in Montana, I would pick three. And these are the three I would pick. Tariffs are killing rural America. Family farms, the people who voted for Donald Trump are going to go out of business this winter. They're going to go out of business. Why? Because our markets are trash and the input costs have gone through the roof. I'm talking about fertilizer, herbicides, and the cost of equipment. So those are two things. And then the third thing is inflation, inflation, inflation. Come up with some plans on how you can make everything from food to housing to college education more affordable and push them out there. It's there for the taking. And I think if you're able to come out with a good set of campaign planks that you can talk about every time Mike Dennison asks you a question about what's going on in Ukraine, you talk about tariffs and you talk about inputs in agriculture and you talk about, by the way, you could also talk about what they're doing for healthcare, crashing it. And by the way, the whole state of Montana is rural, so it goes across the state. So it's a target-rich environment. There's plenty of things you can do to make it so people will say, you know what, that guy just talked about all the things that I'm worried about. I'm going to vote for the person, for that gal, and we can do that. But as you pointed out, and this is a fact, if you walk up and say, this person is doing a horrible job, we're going to do better than them, that is not a plan for victory.
Yeah, I made the mistake in 2017. I think I said at one point, I wish people cared as much about politics as they do about professional sports, right? On any given Sunday, you have 1 million people plus, or hundreds of thousands of stadium, billions watching. Now, I think in some respects, people care about politics like they care about professional sports. You're a Raiders fan. Not only do I hate you, I hate your grandma.
What the
And,
hell?
but that's where we are
harsh.
right now. But what we need to do, and I agree with the senator, is bring it to what people talk about at their kitchen table, right? Like, at the end of the day, most people's lives are too busy to give a damn about politics. They're worried about, is my kid going to get sick? What are my property tax payments? What's our public schools like? Make it about what is at home. And tariffs, as the senator says, healthcare, what it says, and who are you fighting for? And I'm willing to fight for you. Like, that's what we need to break through, sort of that national din of red team, blue team. And there's a lot of reasons to be dispirited, but there's also right now a lot of reasons for optimism, right? That folks at the end of the day want to vote for somebody that's going to have their back. And there's a lot of reasons to say that the folks in there right now don't have your back.
We've got a question in the back.
You talked about journalism being a huge part of being essential to keeping democracy alive. And I'm curious, what can the average citizen do to ensure that journalism, especially local journalism, is thriving?
Oh, come on. Wait. You guys need it. You play a role in this too. I have to shout out, that's Emily, who I used to work with, who I started with in my first job in local journalism. And, you know, I think the biggest thing is subscribe to your local newspaper, subscribe to the journalists, follow the journalists that you support, that you want to hear from. That's part of the problem that we're seeing, these news deserts. And what happens when you have a news desert is people aren't getting the information. And you take rural Montana, for instance, and they don't have access to quality local news in many places. And that's across the country. And what happens is other entities fill the void. And a lot of times it is super far right radio news in a lot of cases. And we're seeing that across the country. I just think that also, when you were talking about people calling like the furniture store saying, I want to get my ad on TV. I also heard from people during the election cycles, sorry, I'm not watching the news right now. I can't stand the ads. I can't stand the ads. I don't want to watch the news. Or the news is too depressing, or I have fatigue, or it doesn't affect me. So I think really just having conversations with people around you when they say, I can't pay attention to all that, explaining why it matters and why it's affecting them, why they should be paying attention is a really good practice. What am I missing?
The only thing I would add to this is that if you're an elected official, there's something called earned media that doesn't cost you any money. And what earned media means, you talk to Marisa Giorgio when she worked for a TV station, you talk to Mike Dennison when he worked for a newspaper, and those articles would come out and you would get attention. And this goes back to Mangan's effort, the Montana plan. Until we get this figured out, they don't have to have earned media, because they can put their own message out saying whatever they want, whether it's factual or not, about what they're doing. And we see it. And so I think they both go hand in hand. And I think one helps prop up journalism. And then maybe we'll get to a point where the journalists get back to the point where they're going to ask a question that really is a question that elected official doesn't want to answer. And right now, as I look at the national programs, because there's not really much local press left besides the online stuff, even the national reporters don't ask the tough questions anymore because they're afraid of getting called out by name or whatever it might be. And I think that's really, it's really dangerous, and it's not as much fun either, because I like to see people figure out how the hell they get out of a situation where they voted against their own constituency. And it's happening all the time, but nobody's covering.
I'll add one more thing to that. The other day, Jim Acosta pointed this out, and I think it's a really great point. After, I joke about saying quiet piggy, but that really happened on Air Force One 2 weeks ago, where the president said that to a female journalist. And nobody said anything. Nobody stepped up and said, you can't do that. And I remember, I'm pretty sure it was when Jim Acosta was attacked during the first Trump term, and Peter Alexander from NBC News stood up. He had the next question. He said, I'm sorry, but Jim Acosta is a treasured colleague, smart reporter, and he's not whatever insult the president just threw at him. And I think that we've lost some of that. Here in Montana, during the COVID pandemic, I had never felt closer to the Montana Press Corps, because we were constantly on your press calls, Governor. Thank you for bringing us together.
Beating the hell out of me. Yes.
Beating up on Governor Bullock, but we had constant communication. And then when the administration changed, and we weren't getting the same access, the same press briefings, or we weren't getting the questions answered expediently, or there was favoritism going on, we would all get on Zoom calls and say, what are we going to do about this collectively as a press corps? And I really think we need to get back to that. And we saw that a little bit during when the Pentagon basically said, sign this new agreement or you're going to lose your Pentagon press badge. We saw Fox News say, we're not signing that. We saw some of that banding together. But I think as news consumers, when you see capitulation or silence or reporting that's just not the kind of reporting you want to see, you should reach out to your local news outlet. You should reach out to your national news outlet and say, we want to see more of this. We want to see pushback. We want to see you stand up for each other, because without those journalists not only working together, but also having competitive, friendly competition, we're not going to get these stories. I mean, this Washington Post story about the Hegseth order is a huge story. And how much longer are we going to have that?
Do we have time for one more?
Sure.
I think this is a question for Jeff. I'm curious if there was ever any conversation about self-funding of campaigns, and if candidates should ever be held to the same contribution limits as the rest of us, or maybe that's just a lost cause. Or
Well, I understand exactly what you're saying. there's always been discussions. One of, like I said, we've been working for years. What options are there? Lots of good folks have ran self-funding up the flagpole. Others, I get because of folks spending in their own campaigns in Montana without having that finance limit like other candidates do from others. I get that question a lot. This initiative doesn't cover that, or we would be part of the extra more than one vote provision. But it's certainly something I wouldn't say anything's a lost cause. The reason that we're able to do this today is because we're actually working and we're going to make it not a lost cause. And so if that's something that you're interested in, if we're not successful or if we are successful, it's something you believe in or your friends believe in, just encourage it, support it, go out and do it. Because that's what really makes it change. I can't tackle that one, but you can, and I'd encourage it.
Got a question here?
Yeah, hi, I'm a vet. It's not so much a question as an observation. Montana has nearly 80,000 veterans, one of the highest population per capita in the country, with nearly 30,000 qualifying for disabilities at some level. The big bad bill cut a bunch of funding for veterans, and the funding and the existence and the continuation of facilities like Fort Harrison are up in the air, and it seems like he wants the pushes to privatize. And again, not a question so much as we need to be aware of what's afoot. And I think it would be a great tragedy to lose what we have. I think we're going in the wrong direction.
You're 100% correct, and I will tell you that you're absolutely right. This is an effort to privatize. Here's the problem, though. Most vets like to get out of the VA. At least they did. It's being hollowed out. It got hollowed out by Doge. It's being hollowed out by Secretary Collins as we speak, and it's not good. And so we're going to privatize it. And what did the big beautiful bill do? It's going to put a lot of these rural hospitals out of business. I mean, that's not a statement that I say with a lot of pride, quite frankly, because my small town hospital may be one of them. And so where are the veterans going to go? They're not going to get health care at all. And quite frankly, many of these veterans have more than one thing wrong with them. They have multiple issues. And quite honestly, the VA is the best place to take care of a lot of those issues, especially if you need prosthetics, if you need mental health treatment, all those things. The VA is better prepared than any private hospital is for it. That's a blanket statement. It's a tough statement to make, but the truth is there's going to be no health care for them to get in the private sector after they privatize it. Thanks for your service. That's it.
Any other questions? Looks like it.
He threw the microphone at me. We want to thank you all for being with us in person. Before we go, though, we do something at the end of every episode, literally because of a hat that former Lieutenant Governor Mike Cooney gave Jon Tester. And early on, we started this podcast in February, mostly because I kind of said, hey, we're both out of a job. Should we start a podcast? And Jon Tester said, sure. Only if we make millions, but we're still waiting on that. But he wore a hat. What's the number?
3562.
He had a hat one day. It said 3562, and kind of at the end, what is that? What is 3562? And
it's the number of votes I won my first general election by.
And Mike Cooney had that made for him. And so it started this thing because Jon Tester said, I have bags and bags of hundreds of hats that people give him.
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
And you wear Olympia
Well,
Light.
he wears a different hat every episode, so we can ask about the hat. So tell us about your hat, Senator. What year is this from?
Probably about 1972. Yeah. And it's, I think it's hang on here. Yeah, it's an Ole hat. And the reason I wore it is because I knew Bullock didn't have any Olympia beer on the board in his bar.
We do have Rainier, though.
Okay. So that's why I wore it.
Okay, so we want to thank everybody for joining us. want to thank our guests, former Montana Governor Steve Bullock, Jeff Mangan, leading this initiative, the Montana Plan. Go check it out. And we want to thank Pearl Jam, who lets us use their music, which I still can't believe every time I say that. Thanks to Jeff, another Montana guy, Jeff Raymond. And thank all of you for being with us both in person and online. You can find us on Substack, Blue Sky, Instagram, YouTube, and is that all I have? See you next time.
Allie,
All right.